A shift, a move, a surge, we feel and manifest. Slide from uncertainty and logic to intent. Interminable imaginaries guided by ancestor strength. Abide by no one's government. We blow into the left more. We see more. Whose life is this for? Global affinities we work within our trenches. We make love through local intentions. Slow, chaotic and slow, but that seed people got you sold is one day a tree guarding you from the cold and more. We see more from margin to the goal.
necesidades ajenas no sienten mi pena. Que haya donde no había, no solicito permiso para la vida. Soy rica en esperanzas y de reto no me niego. Le daré vista hasta el más ciego. Soy rica en esperanzas y de reto no me niego. Estoy aquí, estoy aquí. Y de reto no me niego. Estoy aquí, estoy aquí. sigue de pie, no como el muerto acostado. Ay, esas cumbres, como brillan, llamando la atención. A través del mundo aumentan los hogares de la mina y carbón. Allá donde no había, no solicito permiso para la vida. Soy rica en esperanzas y de reto no me niego. Le daré vista hasta el más ciego. Soy rica en esperanzas y de reto no me niego. Estoy aquí y de reto no me niego. Estoy aquí. Estoy aquí, yo veré, no me enciego. Estoy aquí. Ay, esta espantosa día. Estoy aquí. Llevarnos fuerte la ansia. Estoy aquí. Clave que hierve la vida. Bajo un sudor mexicano. Over mountains, over cerros, over desert valleys, from the ranchos to the towns to the city alleys. Coming ones, coming twos, Texas, you to Cali. People walking, running, crawling, border tallies. Men, boys, women, girls, young, old, teeny, fatty. Hold their elders, hold their hopes, hold their little babies. No food, no means, no way to have it. Run, stumble, fall, get back up and at it. Yeah, make the plan, pay the man, truck it, walk it, run it. Under moon, under radar, make the dash and gun it. Touching down, get to town, washing, working, mowing. Taking heat, filling needs, sending line unknowing. That you need, feel like creep, has a present sowing. Other ties, US lies, going, telling, throwing. The more they come, they'll challenge, sets of law and knowing. What is seen, what it's moving, there is no destroying. And if you've heard this story, you know more pain than glory. Oh, pillow people. Oh, pillow people. Dreaming, dreams, pay us slowly lifting. On the pillows in the valleys, on the bestia drifting. Milagros, santos, muchos love, elder persinadas. A safe return, a miracle, new peregrinadas. The oracle said miracle, yeah. History at its pinnacle, yeah. The oracle said soaring through the sky. Light of day.
Welcome to Trek Table, your Sunday weekly podcast holding Trek space for
Black, Indigenous, Brown,
women of color,
queer or otherwise,
and our allies. Hi, I'm your host, Allison Ordela, and today I'm holding Trek space for people trying to heal from trauma who don't want to have to relive it over and over and over again.
Hi, I'm your co-host Maya, and today I'm holding Trek space for educators and students and people just trying to keep each other safe.
Hi, I'm your co-host Maya Mama, and today I'm holding Trick Space for seeing the grays, but also trusting in yourself.
Hi, I'm your guest, Hazel Lozano, and I'm holding Trek Space for all degrees of nerddom.
Yes. Welcome to the Trek Table, episode 25. We're so glad that everyone is here. And in addition to holding all this Trek space, we want to start our show by acknowledging that our teams and our digital equipment for the Trek Table are on the unceded lands of the Tongva, the Chumash, the Quiche, the Ohlone, the Puyallup, the Massachusetts, and Pawtucket peoples. We are grateful to the Indigenous stewards of these lands, the ancestors who have come before, those who are here now, and those who have yet to come. We invite all of our listeners and viewers to get to know the people whose lands that you are on and to begin to acknowledge those people and their lands as well. So let's go ahead, all take a breath in through our nose and out through your mouth. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us today as we hold Trek Space for Women of Color here in front of our live digital audience on Outside In Theater's YouTube channel, as well as those of you watching us on the Trek Table Archive video podcast, as well as our podcast listeners. Welcome.
Our opening track for this episode is titled Chicana Skies by the band Quetzal, off their album Quetzal. You'll be hearing several tracks by Quetzal throughout this episode of Trek Table. Follow them at Quetzal Music on Instagram and see our show notes or the chat for a link to their merchandise and more.
Yes, and we want to welcome you to episode 25 of the Trek Table. It's hard to believe that we are already at 25 episodes. This podcast just started in 2021, so super grateful for everybody here. What's up to all our friends in the chat? I'm your host, Allison Ordela. On this show, I call myself Dela. I just want to say thanks to everybody for showing up for this conversation with women of color as we talk about Star Trek Discovery. We've assembled today to talk about Season 2, Episode 8, If Memory Serves. Super juicy. Thematically, we're going to jump in. We're thinking about our own perceptions and how they can sometimes be illusions. We're thinking about how characters are trying to grow in their vulnerability. And we're kind of looking at how many times you have to retell your trauma in order to heal from it. And what does it mean when someone like the Tolusians ask Burnham to witness her trauma, to witness her pain as a mode for their own growth? So we're going to get into some really chunky questions. And of course, the Space Daddies are back. Dr. Hugh is leaving the sick bay this episode. So we're watching all of that kind of come down. So lots of things to think about, lots of things to hold space for. Stick around because for these reasons and so many more, we think we have a great episode today.
Yes, we are so glad that you're joining this Black, Indigenous, Women of Color centered Trek conversation. And hello and welcome. So, hi. And we are here so that we can build with each other. How do you enter this conversation as a Star Trek fan? Are you Star Trek curious, a newbie, a canon head, a Trekkie, an OG Trekkie, a Trekker, Star Trekking family, Star Trekking zaddy? Let us know in the chat.
All right, so we are back on this episode 25. We're going to break into Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 8 in a couple of different ways today. We're going to go Trek Table questions. We're going to explore popcorn recap. Since Claudia's not here, Maya Mama's going to take Discovery Design. Maya Chinchilla is here today. We're going to get some fresh space runway looks. I'm here to braid it all together in thematics. We've got a spoiler zone that our guest Hazel's going to be a part of as well. We've got signal boots, final thoughts, and of course, we always end in gratitude. So before we jump into this ritual, we want to know who's at this table, who are we talking to, right? So we want to welcome everybody. I'm going to ask the table to go around and check in. Can I have you say your name again, your pronouns, visual description, and any access check-in needs that you have? And to answer that final question that Maya just posed to the chat, how do you identify as a Star Trek fan? Maya Mama, can I have you go first?
Yeah, absolutely. I am Maya Mama. I use she, her, hers. Access check-in. There are 4 dogs that live in my house, and they're dogs, so they're gonna be dogs. And so they might bark occasionally. I'm a young-looking, middle-aged Black woman. I'm wearing makeup. I'm wearing my Discovery shirt and my insignia here. I am a generational Star Trek, poly sci-fi, and super excited about this episode.
Awesome. Maya, can I have you go next?
Hello. Yes, welcome. Hi, I'm Maya, she, her, hers. I am a mestiza Guatemalan with purplish, pinkish hair, and some say that my glasses actually match my hair. Didn't do that on purpose. And a burgundy shirt. I have my co-pilot Chorizo with me at my feet, so he sometimes growls or grumbles, but he's just, he has feelings too. And I identify as a Star Trek fan, a little sci-fi curious, and just around the way, loving having these conversations in community.
Amazing. Thank you. Welcome. I am also excited today to welcome to the table, introduce to everybody here at the Trek table, Hazel Lozano, who's going to be joining us. Welcome, Hazel. Hazel is the 1.5 generation Filipinx American teaching artist, currently working on being a better human and advocate for representation. She produces the podcast Intimacy Choreography in Conversation, hosted by Ann James and Carly D. Wexstein, and scrolls IG too often at A Typical Haze. Hazel has had the honor of playing many LA stages previously, including roles at the Skylight, her amazing Iago in Othello for the Griot Theater, and she is currently on stage at the Fountain Theater here in Los Angeles in An Octoroon. And Hazel has a love for her many plant children, Cerugals, I think you name it. Welcome, Hazel. How are you today? Can I have you check in for the table?
Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Hazel Lozano. My pronouns are she, her, and siya, which is the Filipino non-binary. I have very short hair. I have tan skin. I'm wearing black framed glasses and black and pink headphones and a purple t-shirt with penguins. This is the nerdiest shirt I could find. And my access check-in is that, wait, it's probably TMI. I didn't get to use the bathroom beforehand because of some miscommunication, but I will do that after the show. So if you see me hopping on one leg or shifting side to side, that's why.
The things we do for Star Trek. Welcome.
Woo!
Well, wait, can I ask you, how do you identify as a Star Trek fan?
I would say I'm a bandwagon nerd. I got into Discovery thanks to you, Allison, because I'd heard of the show, but I didn't really get plugged into it until you gave me your Paramount login. And then I got hooked. So I've binged all 3 seasons, and I'm a big fan. I also watched Star Trek TNG every now and then growing up. And I've just absorbed some other episodes of DS9 just through my roommate Anita in grad school, who was a huge Star Trek fan.
Awesome. Well, we definitely want to reach out to Anita maybe and find out if she's watching
Oh my gosh.
Discovery.
Yes. I will connect you because she's
Amazing.
a great person to talk to about it.
Awesome. And I'm so glad you're here. Welcome, welcome. I will complete our check-in round. Hi, what's up, everybody? I'm Allison, or Dela, all the identities. My pronouns are she, he, they, or Dela. Visual description. I've got a little bit of a bouffant in my hair, my black hair with some blue highlights because all the blue is a little bit hidden right now. Filipinx mixed person. I've got my bone carving of a whale on my neck. Just always my shouts out to the ocean and Star Trek Voyage Home 4. Really great movie. And I identify as a Star Trek fan. Definitely came in Next Generation nerd. Old school Trekkie from the 90s. I was about to say the 70s. But I would say, like, when I found Discovery, obviously I loved it so much I wanted to create a whole podcast for it. So here we are. And even though I'm hella sci-fi poly, I definitely am. My primary is Star Trek Disco. So I'm so happy to be here. My access check-in is just that I've had coffee and I'm worried that later tonight I will not be able to sleep. But I'm so hyped for this conversation and excited to be here with everybody. So welcome. All right. I want to say what's up to all our friends in the chat. We've got some great friends who we haven't seen in a minute. So happy to see you. I see that in the chat, Eseal's identifying as Baby Trek. Super awesome. Welcome back, Jess Queen. So glad to have you. What's up, Satterfield, all the way in the UK? Like, all our friends are showing out today. So if you're watching us live, send us a what's up in the chat. We want to give you love as well. All right. So this final business that we do before we jump into our discussion is we just have agreements, right? We want to be able to talk to each other and have a conversation and not be hating on each other. So here at the Trek table, we have some agreements. We say welcome to all who enter, whether you're a newbie raised in a Star Trekking family or just discovering the show now. Welcome. Let's build this space together.
Whether you use Trek Table as your nerdy exploration or as part of your self-care ritual, Trek Table is a weekly space to put down the world for a second and come into Trek space.
This is a space for Black, Brown, Indigenous, women of color to be a fan, a geek, a nerd, and explore the vastness of the Star Trek multiverse.
Yes, Trek Table is also a place for our allies to come engage and explore as well. An opportunity for allies to hold space and focus on the insights, perspectives, and experiences that we may not or you may not be familiar with.
And now that we're all here, we remind you that we seek to build an environment of mutual respect and listening. We understand we'll disagree, and that's part of the fun, but there's enough hate going on in the world. We don't need that here. So keep your phasers on stun.
Yes. So let's go ahead. Trek Table assembled here in the video as well as on the chat and in the podcast. Let's go ahead and I'll breathe in those agreements. Let's go ahead and take a breath in. And exhale. All right. And since Claudia's not here today, I'm going to take over Trek Table questions. So here we go. Trek Table question number 1 posed to all of you. We spend a lot of time in the Tellusian caves in this episode. It made me wonder, what is your favorite Star Trek cave and why? So maybe it's the Trill Caves or the cave on Kronos or that Katra Stone cave on Vulcan. Where is your favorite Star Trek cave?
Mira que regresa el maldito. Viene con las manos llenitas de piedra que no quiere arrojar.
All right, so we are back with Trek Table question number 1, asked to the table assembled. Those in the chat, you can always tweet us at Trek Table 1 on Twitter. What is your favorite Star Trek cave and why? Maya, can I go to you first? Where's your cave action?
You know, I feel like somebody's gonna say the cave that I was thinking of, but so I just wanted to draw attention to the fact that Star Trek has a lot of caves when I started to look into it. And I don't know what cave this is, but I saw some random episode with from TNG with Picard and Wesley Crusher, and Picard gets knocked out, and Wesley has to like take care of him, and there's some other guy, and I couldn't remember anything more about that, but I just so many caves to think about.
Thank you so much. And Maya Mama and I both verbally and visually reacted. So yes to that cave. I'm gonna jump to you next, Maya Mama. Your favorite cave in Star Trek?
The Trill Caves always seem like super chill. And I'm also just gonna throw in the Okampan caves, and that whole thing is pretty nice. I don't know if it really counts as a cave, but it's good.
Can you spell Okampan for those of us who want to go to Memory Alpha and check that?
Ocampin.
Okay, Okampan. All right, all right. And just
From
to say if
Voyager.
you're from Voyager, thank you, Voyager. All right. Hazel, I'm gonna come to you next. Welcome, guesty guest. Do you have a favorite cave in Star Trek?
I'm gonna have to go with my mama on the Trill Caves because I do love a hot tub. I know it's not a hot tub, but hey, it's actually a hot tub plus, right? Because you also get various people's experiences. It's like hot tub theater.
Hot tub
Ooh.
theater. Wow.
Oh,
That is a post-pandemic.
that is a concept. Yeah, right. I look forward to Outside In Theater's next production.
Okay, Outside In Theater has been invited to create. What did you call it? Cave
Hot
place.
tub theater.
Hot tub theater. Okay, hot tub theater. All right, we're too excited right now. I'm gonna read some responses in the chat because this cave question has people going. Satterfield H says, "Is there a better cave than Genesis Cave in the Wrath of Khan? I don't think so. Creation from nothing." What's up to our friend and host Claudia up in the chat? What's up, Claudia? Claudia says the Katra Cave, baby. It blocks folks from finding you psychically. Yes. And I will just say also in the chat, Claudia's like, hot tub theater, keeping it trill. I think that's a fun little that's a fun little way to go. I'm gonna say in terms of my
boy.
answer, I do love the Trill Cave season 3 of Disco. I will say I kind of fell in love with the cave on Kronos at the end of season 1. I'm not really a heat person, but the architecture was gorgeous, and we got all that gothic churchish kind of looking things. And then finally in the chat, we're getting Brandon to say bringing the Twitch hot tub meta to the theater. Okay, we're having a lot of fun today in the chat. So many things. Friends who are still watching, feel free to chat us, send us a tweet, all those things. Thank you all so much. And don't forget to follow us at Trek Table on Instagram. And that was Trek Table question number 1.
Trek Table is proud to be a part of the digital theater community at Outside In Theater. Like and subscribe to the Outside In YouTube channel for our weekly live digital recordings. Listening on the podcast? Check out youtube.com/Outside In Theater.
And we're back. And with that song, Matanzas by the band Quetzal, we know that it is time for Popcorn Recap. The game is simple. We have 2.5 minutes to share chunklets of plot from this week's episode.
Yes, we will talk about season 2, episode 8, If Memory Serves, directed by TJ Scott, written by Dan Dworkin and Jay Beatty.
We think it's funny because Hazel is new to the show and has never done Popcorn Recap before. Maya is a Trek newbie who has been doing a lot of research. Dela loves minutia, and I come from a Trek generational family. Can we get this done?
Brandon, please put 2.5 minutes on the timer. I think we can get it done this time. I have faith.
Yes.
Incoming
ready.
transmission.
Okay, so the show starts with a flashback, and like Pike has been to Talos 4, and so has Spock, but Pike used to love Vina, and he still does. It's like, oh.
And then meanwhile, Section 31, the Admirals are giving Leland shade and Giorgio love. She gets to do the briefing with Tyler and Pike. And then Tyler tells Pike he used to love Burnham. What? Later, he'll confide in Pike that he needs to let Burnham do Burnham because he trusts her more than Section 31. The love is still there.
Mhm. So then Spock shows Burnham the secret wave through the black hole illusion, and then he passes out, but not without some side eye. Then Vina gets Burnham to beam her and Spock down to a cave so Spock can be examined.
Meanwhile, back on Discovery, Stamets is reintroducing Culber, a very brooding Culber, to life on the ship, but people be staring, and Culber is like, "You never made me dinner in our quarters before. This is too much pressure." No, and he storms out.
Meanwhile, back on Talos 4, Burnham agrees to help to trade. She'll let the Tellusians fix her brother while they get to look at her personal memory that is the catalytic incident that drove them away from each other.
Oh my goodness. And then back on Discovery, Culber finds Tyler in the mess hall, rolls up on him and starts a fight. And he's like, "Come on, bring out Volk. I want to kill you too," or something. I know he didn't say that. But Saru looks on and lets them wrestle a little until they end up almost hugging. And wow, they have a moment of like recognition. They're both kind of different than they were before.
And so then Captain Pike gets a telepathic message from Vina, and he is like shook for real. He can't believe she's there. And Burnham shows up in a split screen. I want to see that. Perfect. No. Of Pike's mind, and then Spock's there, and Spock's class.
Yeah, go.
Spock
You
says,
got it.
Spock says, "Get me right. I need a ride home. I'm on Talos 4."
Discovery
right.
tries to jump to Black Alert, but there's someone who sabotages Spore Drive, and so they lock Tyler up for his own safety, and then they warp to Starbase 11, but then they veer off to Talos, and then somehow a Section 31 ship shows up.
Yeah, and then Burnham pays the debt and says, "Sorry, bro, I'm sorry." And Spock's like, And then there's a battle to who's going to transport Spock and Burnham off the planet.
And Pike lets Burnham and Spock beam up get beamed up by Section 31. Culber has to move out of his quarters with Paul, and Hugh just wants his space.
And they all run.
And they run. They run, and that's it. And we did it. We did it. There was nothing else that happened.
We did. Nothing else happened.
Nothing else happened. Shh.
Don't watch
Justin-
the episode.
Well, I want to say that is the closest that we have actually. I'm support. We got that done. Good job, table. Good job. Good job. Good job.
Yeah. Good job.
I
mean,
love
my mouth just stopped working, and I apologize. I take responsibility.
All right. So if you are looking for more detailed notes than we were able to give in this 2.5 minutes ish, we want to point you to our friends at Women at Warp. They do an amazing job of doing more detailed recaps. You can find the link on your screen or in our chat or in our episode notes. Yes.
And if you're having a good time, like we obviously are, let's keep the dialogue going. Like and subscribe to us on Instagram. We love to be liked at Trek Table, and then on Twitter at Trek Table 1. Join our convos with hashtags like hashtag Trek Table, hashtag BIWOC Trek, hashtag Star Trek Discovery.
Welcome to Discovery Design. Let's dish on the design elements that gave us all the drama this episode. I've got some topics here, so I'm just going to read them off, and then I will invite y'all to sound off. All right, so first let's start with those singing flowers, those little blue flowers. Anybody notice how they just seem to make people smile? Maya, Chinchilla, what do you think?
Yeah, so in my research, watching the episode 0, the singing flowers are a nod to the original series, and we see Burnham smiling. We see a little bit of Spock smiling, but Spock in the original is like super giddy when he sees these flowers. They sing when they touch, and he's like, oh, it's like a moment of whimsy. And I also, in the original series, his bangs are a little bit more like mussed up, and he has like rougher eyebrows. He's just, and then it looks like they decide to go in a different direction. So I think it's a wonderful moment when somebody's smiling after doing all that hard science and brooding.
Yeah, there's a lot of hard science. I love that. I love that. Let's go to the illusions of flying around the black hole. Dela, what do you think about those? About the black hole, and then they go and they beam down into the chamber.
Totally. I'm really fascinated by how the Tellusians are able to create these projections and these illusions. And it just, at Outside In, we recently met a neighborhood magician who does close up magic. And so it just makes me think a lot about like, how do you actually help people's minds see a thing that you want them to see and not what's really there. So yeah, just I love that that black hole illusion was super powerful, because I remember the first time I saw the episode, I was like, they're about to die, what is about to happen. So
So,
I
I
felt it.
kind of have to disagree because she just had the computer exposition telling her that they're all like illusion people. I would have just assumed that this wasn't real,
Mm,
but that's just me. But
hmm.
I mean,
maybe she was just ruled by her impulses. Who
Yeah, my
knows?
animal things would have gone, my lizard brain would have gone off, I think.
It's just such a
Let's.
powerful illusion.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, look at it.
It's like an
It's like
entire planet-sized black hole.
what was that ride with Michael Jackson, Captain Emo,
Captain
at
EO.
Disney
Uh-huh.
EO, yeah,
I
Disneyland.
like
You
you.
know, you're strapped in a little chair, and then the visuals just kind of come at you, and the chair shakes a little bit. Yeah, I'm easily would be the illusions would trick me each time.
That suspension of disbelief that sometimes we're just not able to shut off, I guess. Now, this going to this planet is a violation of General Order number 7. It's the only order that includes the death penalty. Now they do go back and forth on this a lot in different Star Trek shows. Um, but they don't really mention this at all. And everyone seems to be okay with that. Does anybody have anything that they want to talk about when it comes to, I don't know, let's say future justice? Hazel, future
Mm.
justice?
I thought, well, from like season 1, episode 1 or 2, where she's in front of the tribunal, I was like, this feels very like 21st century. It didn't feel very like futuristic, very punitive kind of justice. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know much about General Order 7 until you mentioned it. So I feel like the death penalty is an archaic, or should be an archaic thing by this point. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what
It
they
is
think
the
of the death penalty.
only. It's the only thing.
Yeah,
Is death
it's super
penalty.
it's super wild because it's like I think they developed these telepathic powers because they destroyed their own planet, something having to do with the nuclear holocaust. So I think that's sort
Mhm.
of the danger. They don't want us to be able to fall into that same trap as humans. And there's all these like themes of excess and fear of reality that I'm sure we'll get into. But there is something there about the harm in not living in reality and being able to just create your own world out of your mind and your fantasies and your desires as opposed to living in the real. So I think, that must have something to do with it. But clearly they just wanted a reason to say, oh, this is so dangerous. We can't even go there. We don't even talk about it in the entire, like last 50 years of Star Trek.
For real, for
Mhm.
real. So did anybody
Very
notice
strange.
though, if you had seen even the flashbacks from the original episode 0 of the cage, where they sort of changed the coloring of Talos to be
Mhm.
like sort of Man of Steel blue scale over
Mhm.
everything. I think maybe to make
Mhm.
it more serious.
Mhm.
Um uh a- any opinions? I think I would have preferred it maybe if they had made it a little bit brighter and sunnier. Maybe it was just the time of day.
Mm. I mean, it felt like they were trying to go for that desert overexposed look. that we've
Mm-hmm.
we saw in another episode where I was like, oh, they must have shot that in the desert and then just hyperexposed it or something. And I'm not a photographer, so I don't even know if that's really what they did. But yeah, it just felt gray to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, I feel like it worked emotionally because it's a very cold, kind of distant place. And that definitely came across with the design. But yeah, I liked the kind of greenish tint in the original series episode.
Yeah, absolutely. It was well, and then lastly, well, one of the last thing I wanted to talk about was the opening sequence, and we had an addition to the opening sequence of some schematic type things of the Red Angel, so we get to see what it is in fact as a suit, um as mechanical, and I just thought that that was really neat. Uh Let's anybody want to chit chat about the cool new schematics? The color scheme as well is pretty cool.
Yeah, I have to say that I nerd out on I love that on this show, the title sequence changes because of what's happening on the show. And I feel like this might be the first time it's the first time that I noticed in the middle of the season that they did it. There's additives in the title sequence. So they didn't want to show us this look that we were just seeing visually on the screen. And for those of us listening on the podcast, it's like in the opening title sequence, there's like 2 or 3 shots of this, and like we couldn't have seen this before last episode because it would have been a spoiler, you know. So I just
Mhm.
like that the title sequence is pacing with us synchronously and not trying to spoil the show as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I noticed it when I first noticed that they were doing that when they pulled up the Section 31 insignia. I was
Mm.
like, wait a minute. Have I seen that before?
Oh.
I thought it was a cool way
Good
to
catch.
kind of remind people while they're watching.
It's when they have the 3 badges, right? It's like there's a Section
Mhm.
31 badge and then 2 other.
Yeah.
Love it.
Okay.
Okay, and then just lastly before we close out, I just wanted to share that like I was super nerd. I mean, I made it my background image for today. I forgot to acknowledge that in my visual acknowledgement that the backdrop of what I'm sitting in front of today is a green screen of Captain Pike's new ready room. I love that he has this little bar cart that he's trying to serve Tyler from. He even seems to have sake glasses when they're drinking later. It looks like he's got some kind of circular glass going on. So I just want to say my favorite bar right now on the USS Discovery is the Captain Pike Ready Room. So I don't know if anybody else noticed his ready room and that little barlet moment. Yeah.
Yes.
I'd love to hang out there.
I didn't notice that it was
Absolutely.
a little tiny bar cart. That's like a little IKEA situation.
Space
But also,
IKEA.
aren't the alcohols, aren't they all synthahol at this point?
Yes,
So they're
unless
really
you
just
have
having,
a
like-
bottle.
Oh, like
Right,
a
they
like
are,
a
yeah.
vintage.
Yes.
So do we think that this is real alcohol, or is he actually holding a bar cart full of synthol?
I
I
don't
think
know.
he
Maybe
has
he has
real
a secret
alcohol.
stash. Yeah. He
Secret
seems like a guy
stash.
with a secret stash. Yeah.
I believe that. Yeah, that's true.
And certainly if you're watching Lower Decks, Mariner has secret stashes of like Romulan ale and all kinds of stuff all over the ship. So I would hope Pike worked it out
Yeah.
on some, on some shore leave. He got some real stuff to
Some
drink.
earth
So,
booze.
earth booze.
Yeah, and he's broing out with Ash still, right? Like
Mhm.
he's like, here, let's have a talk, man. Here's a drink.
Let me unzip my collar. Like we're off duty right now. We're just talking as bros. So yeah. Okay, and so I know we have to wrap, but the last thing I just want to say is just as you watch this episode, just the moment of at the very end when we see the actual running away with Burnham and baby Burnham and baby Spock in their driveway, just aesthetically, just design wise, I was just really struck by there was a moon, like just all kinds of things. Really, really gorgeous. It does look like a place I would want to throw a party, even maybe not so moody like this, but like,
Mhm.
yeah, nods to the designers, like just really appreciating all the things.
Yeah.
It's really gorgeous.
How many Vulcan vehicles could you park in that driveway?
Right.
You could have a lot of people over, or you could dance in the driveway. It's multifaceted. Play a little, I don't know, sports ball.
Mm-hmm.
But the orange lighting is very dramatic.
Yes. I love it. I love it. Awesome. Yeah, thanks my mama for letting us have this
All
convo.
right. Yeah, absolutely. And that was Discovery Design.
Yes. And I wanted
I just wanted to be dramatic.
yes. So much drama in the design. And I want to take a second and give a shout out to our podcast listeners. Thank you for your support as we grow our little show that could. Your likes and subscribe mean a whole lot to us. Oh, we need them. We love them. We covet them. Please, if you've got a second, just send us a tweet at TrekTable1 and let us know your thoughts about this segment or other thoughts about the show. And you can use, if you're talking about this segment, you can use hashtag TT25 or hashtag Disco Design.
Yes, and as we head into this musical break, we're getting into Trek Table question number 2. We like the options today. So, who are you rooting for or resonating with most in that fight in the mess hall between Culber and Tyler Ash, who I want to call Ash Tyler Volk, but it's too spoilery. So, who are you rooting for? A, Dr. Culber, B, Tyler, C, Saru, and all his new Vahari self, or D, somebody else that you're rooting for. Think about it. We'll find you on the other side of this music cue.
Mira que regresa el maldito. Viene con las manos llenitas de piedra que no quiere arrojar.
All right. All right, we are back. And if you are watching us live on the Outside In Theater YouTube channel, you can take this YouTube poll that's up. Trek Table question number 2. Who were you rooting for most in the Culber versus Tyler fight in the mess hall? Is it A, Culber, B, Tyler, C, Saru, or D, name your own? Let's go with our guest today, Hazel. Who are you rooting for in this fight?
I was rooting for Culber. I was really digging this whole dark, brooding Culber. And I was hoping that, at the end he could get Tyler in like a chokehold or something. Alas. But I did appreciate actually the like romantic like arm hold that they had going. It was nice. I was hoping for something more after that. It was a little steamy for me.
Mm-hmm.
Hashtag hot tub theater.
Yes.
Yes, and in the chat later, Justin did say there is a musical being ideated right now. So thank you. Hashtag hot tub theater.
Yay!
All right, Maya Mama, let's go to you next. Who are you rooting for in this fight?
I'm rooting for acknowledgement of pain. Nobody came out of this entire situation without being scarred and harmed. And everyone's really swallowing that up. So that's who I'm rooting for. Truth. In
Okay.
Phoenix.
See you, Truth. In the chat before I jump to you, Maya, we see Minda's rooting for the fight itself. It's not about the winner, but the process of fighting. So maybe a little bit of what you're saying, Maya Mama. You see he's feeling bad for Tyler. Like his face is really like, bro, it's not me. So yeah, so definitely some feels going on. Maya, what do you say? Who are you rooting for, resonating with on this fight?
Yeah, there's a lot of loss, right? I mean, Volk killed Culber as we knew him, and he's back. There's a relationship that's in flux, and I just think that there's got to be a way for anger and sadness and pain to have like an external way of expressing itself, without like we always want to just suppress those things, right? Because it's ugly. But I think just being able, the moment that they're able to kind of like, but not inflict any more pain on each other, is beautiful to me. But yes, hello Culber and tall Ash, coming together in the bro hug.
And I want to acknowledge, Maya, as I was listening to you, your audio got a little bit crunchy there at the top, but I got you at the bro hugging. It reminded me, hearing your answer and watching your visual. It reminded me of, yeah, that scene we kept having to see in the previously on Discovery, where we have to see Ash actually with Culber, and like, and just, I wish that intimacy of Ash holding Culber was not about death. And so you're giving me all those feels about, yeah, what are the possibilities. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
um I'm wondering though, can I just, hi everybody who's watching the live show, can we go back? I wonder, Maya, can I ask you to answer again at the top, just because your audio got muddled?
Sure. How's my audio? Can you hear me?
It was
Okay,
great.
great.
It's great now. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. So I just, yeah, for the loss itself, I think, but the expression of the anger and like, and allowing men to express their hurt and their sadness and their anger in kind of like a safe way, and the way Saru was like, no, I'm gonna let this happen. So, the whole thing, all A, B, C, and D.
Thank you. And thank you for letting us go back to that. Yes, we want to explore the ways that men and people of multiple genders can express anger. And I think kind of what you just said reminds me of the way Pike went at it too. He's like, I think, Saru, you're feeling a little bit different than you might have before Vaharai. I'm gonna let you process this, but I also need you to go back and tell everybody violence is not the way on this ship. And so I'm just always impressed by the way that Pike tries to lead in all the ways that are appropriate, but expand our definitions of appropriate, if that makes sense. Yeah. So thank you, Maya, for that. Thank you to everybody in the chat. There's a whole live thing going on about people in steamy hot tubs, and a bunch of dittos to Maya, what you said about allowing men to express their anger. Thank you all so much. If you are listening on the podcast, we just want to say thank you. If you haven't listened to us on podcast, this is your invitation. Download us now, and think about this. Share your answers with us to this particular Trek Table question. You can add us on Twitter at TrekTable1. For context, considering adding hashtag TT25, that's Trek Table episode 25. Question 2, hashtag Culber Ash fight. We want to know what you are thinking. Thanks to all of our listeners, and live viewers. And that was Trek Table question number 2.
And now is the point in our show when we dance break, when we head into Space Runway.
Some of the eye-catching looks from function to fashion in the 23rd century. Space runway. Welcome to Space Runway. This week we are doing highlights from season 2, episode 8. That would make sense. 5 looks today. Look number 5, just like as we were talking about emo Culber. We're used to seeing Culber as compassionate, grounded in his medical whites, but here he is wearing black, plain jumpsuit zipped up to his neck and closed off body language when he's near his boo, and then unzipped to his chest and angry when he faces off with Tyler. Even though that asopao Puerto Rican soup Stamek lovingly prepares for him, he still can't bring him back to the Culber that he was. Look number 4, Baby Spock and Young Burnham.
Look at those precious baby faces. Baby Spock's cheeks are accented by his Vulcan bangs. As he wakes from his first Red Angel premonition wearing his white pullover nightshirt, he runs after young Burnham, who is sporting a long navy blue tunic hoodie and an excellent Vulcan bowl cut. Finally, we get to see the emotional wound backstory.
Yes. Look number 3, Vina in a subtle A-line and heels.
Yes, Vina gets to look how she wants with the help of the Telosians, and she prefers a bronze A-line mini dress and heels. It's a barren planet. She could at least use some hiking heels, but fantasy reigns, and not just for Vina, cause she's Pike's fantasy girl. She's Pike's fantasy girl. We gotta figure out what that song is there.
So many Trek space fashion songs of possibilities. Look number 2, Telosians then and now.
Melding 60s era Dr. Evil blue grays and oversized shoulders and floor-length tunics with capes, as if they are all one piece of laser-printed fabric. A delightful upgrade from the gowns the Telosians were swimming in episode 0 of the original series.
Yes, and now look number 1, Spock, remote on a planet. Telosians take us into Spock's mind and a variety of Spock's looks. The standout is this puffy white winter coat with fur-trimmed hood and face mask that would be useful today. From the nightgown, winter coat, and psych ward whites, they all seem to represent his innocence in his own mind and his parallel hero's journey. And that, my friends, is Space Runway for this week. Thank you, nerds, for indulging me in some space fashion talk, fashion form and function in the future.
All right, welcome back to Thematics. Thank you, Maya, for that awesome Space Runway. Thematic section of Trek Table is where we get a chance to kind of braid it all together. We've been talking this episode about illusion, perception, and perspective. We were talking a little bit about vulnerability as well. So topic number 1, I'm curious as we think about this idea or the ways in which illusions and perceptions around this appeared in this episode. We see things for Burnham and Spock. We see with Culber and Stamets, even kind of what Culber is experiencing. It almost feels like Stamets can't even see that. Stamets doesn't have that same perception, right? And then you get like the super illusionists in the Telosians with the rest of the universe. Some of the things that I heard in this episode that really kind of resonated is at one point Tyler says to Pike in their Ready Room bar talk, he's like, it doesn't matter what you think and what you believe. Section 31 thinks Spock is a killer. We also have Spock kind of telling his sister at some point when she's trying to like get into this conversation with him, he's like, no, I am not here. Hey, freeway near my house. Spock says to Burnham, hey, I'm not here to absolve you. This is not about your feelings. So yeah, definitely some perspectives on perception and illusion. Maya Mama, I'm wondering if you could start us off. Thoughts on this topic?
Well, I think that for a utopian society like the Federation, they seem to have some a backward perception of what criminal justice is. Hopefully we'll see some evolution of that. I think that I see a lot of Spock refusing to see Burnham's point of view because of his anger and resentment that he feels towards her. It's a super emotional sort of a reaction to that. And it's from his perception that he's lived with for most of his life.
Yes. Hazel, your thoughts on this topic?
I'm surprised considering that like Michael knows that Spock is half human, that she never points to that. That she never is like, you think you're this like logical being and that you approach everything rationally, but you still have human blood and you behave as a human a lot of the time, especially when you're angry. So I think that's interesting. Maybe it's intentional because Michael does have this like very protective attitude towards her brother. But I just realized that hearing you all talk about this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, she never quite engages fully with his soul human side. Yeah. And I know last week, Maya, you all had a conversation about biculturalism as we saw that Sarek family fight with Amanda. I'm wondering your thoughts, Maya, about this topic as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting because also when you're like two cultures, specifically two, and identify as two as opposed to like, mestizos or people who are multiple cultures mixed together, multiple ethnicities. There's always this like push to like you must choose something that you more identify with, or maybe you identify more with your mom than your dad, or where you were born versus where you grew up. And I see that as like, even though he's got that hard exterior, when he's a kid and he's running after Burnham, and she's like, I'm trying to keep you safe, and he's like using his logic mind, but he's still lots of feelings. He's like, safe is a relative concept, right? So he's using that argumentative thing in that thing, like, no, I want you to stay here, I idolize you, and I want to be connected to my humanness, and for some reason her leaving pushes him to fiercely be like, no, this is what's going to keep me safe, is staying away from my humanness. But when that is part of who you are and your culture, it seeps in, not in kind of like a fixed way, like 50% this and 50% that. And it's part of the journey of Spock, right?
Most definitely. And that, I mean, that I appreciate that bridge, because I think, like, yes, as we continue to think about all these things, and the next topic for me in this conversation is about vulnerability and perspective. And we had a little bit of talk about this in the prep. And just, first of all, I just want to give shouts out to the director and the whole team, TJ Scott and the whole team, because this episode did an amazing job of changing pace on us, giving us lots of different moments and ways to have to deal with the information that was happening, from our orientation and our perception of what was happening at the very top of the episode in that flashback, to like the way the camera would swirl and flip from space into the bridge. So really challenging us throughout the episode to really kind of understand, think about perspective, and then jumping to like that very quiet moment between Stamets and Colbert in their quarters, where Stamets is trying everything he can, serving Hugh his favorite asopao recipe, and then Hugh having that reaction, as Hazel said in Popcorn Recap, where it's like, you never did this before. No. So everybody's kind of having these moments of trying to understand, like, as they're trying to heal, as they're trying to move forward. Even Pike is like having his own vulnerability with Vina. And like, I just feel like there's so many moments where it's like, I see a whole new sliver of Pike that I never thought I would see. So I'm curious what we think about this idea of vulnerability and perspective. Hazel, I wonder if you have some thoughts.
Well, I was thinking about the lens flares being a very key part of this show, and specifically in this episode. Just like, I realized on rewatching how much that plays into well, one, just like establishing where we are in terms of, we're in this like high-tech future space type environment, but also when we're fading in and out of either Burnham's memory or Spock's memory, it's a really lovely way of like disorienting us and also reorienting us into this different perspective. Oh, and then Maya, you mentioned how we see a different perspective in terms of the costuming, which please mention that. I also just like watching for the first time the original series episode with Captain Pike. It's interesting to me to see what feels like a rewrite of the character as a way of absolving Captain Pike of, the 60s mindset that a captain would have, or that a man would have. So I'll have to watch the rest of this season thinking of that, because I hadn't thought of that before, that the Star Trek of the 60s was a product of its time, and having this new writer's room that has the opportunity to present Captain Pike differently, and how my exposure to Captain Pike was very much like, oh man, this is like the dream ally / accomplice. Like, he just stands up for everyone. But he's been rewritten by different voices.
Right. So yes, we definitely get that moment in terms of our connection to original series. Maya, I'm wondering, you have some thoughts about this particular topic? I know you were talking about.
Yeah, also, in this sort of lost pilot that's before the first episode of the original series, I went back and watched it. It's a drag. It's like it's fun nerd fun, but I'm glad that it was shelved, but it looks like they had this planned all along. They wanted to bring back this character. I know he was also in one of the 2009 movies. But yeah, it's like in the pilot, the whole thing is that he needs a break from being in charge of whether people live or die, and so and that's where the Telosians are able to kind of like try to draw him in with the fantasy world with Vina, and I think he's even talking to his doctor friend on the ship about like, yeah, I just want to go back to Mojave and ride some horses for a bit, or I don't know if I want to be a captain anymore. So that's the whole like conflict from that show. But I mean, that is the thing about being vulnerable, the perspective of this idea that what do we really need? Do we really want to deal with reality, and do we want, do we need to just be like work? And that's also the thing that happens with Hugh Culber, in his reaction to Stamets making that Puerto Rican soup, that he's trying to do this tender thing because he's got his boo back, but Hugh has got this pain because part of the reason why he gets lost and not only being killed by Volk / Tyler, but he gets lost in the network is intimately tied with how Stamets is this workaholic, and he's like, let me do just one more trip, and then we can, and so it's this moment of like, uh, that that's something that maybe he even was thinking about as he's trying to survive the network, and it's but also in the interviews, I think it's important to point out that Wilson Cruz is really interested in inserting the Puerto Ricanness of his character without it being like like a kind of a token thing, and that he's actually said that we'll be seeing more of his journey in the next season. So I think that's fun there. So it's really small little things that we get about his background, but hey, we want to see some Latinos and Afro Latinos in space too.
Most definitely. And yeah, that's my hope for season 4 of Star Trek Discovery is that, I mean, I feel like we're really seeing, there's a spoiler I was about to say right now. I'm going to save it for spoiler zone, which is coming in the next 2 minutes. I'm going to save it. I'm going to save
Good
it.
catch.
Maya, I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it.
Breathe
Oh, I was
through,
about to
breathe
go.
through.
Okay, so connecting to what you just said, I want to jump into this final topic and see if we can, if I can invite folks to try to give us share some thoughts, but think about time. So connected to that representation, what I want to say is like, yes, we need, I hunger for this show. I love this show because I get not only a Michael Burnham character, but I get a Dr. Hugh Culber character. I get a Giorgio character. I get a Stamets character. I get a Tilly. I get a Queen Poe character. We get all these different characters, and I think the perspectives that these characters are bringing are really important. And I think seeing this moment in this show, we were just talking before we came on air about the way that perception becomes perspective. So this is my closing question for thematics for this part. I wonder, do folks have thoughts on how characters are coming to terms with themselves? And I have a couple of examples, but I'm going to hold those back because I want to prioritize y'all. And then I have this spoiler zone thing that I'm going to hold on to. So Maya, I know we just heard from you a little bit, but I know in the prep you were talking about some stuff that we wanted you to mention in this topic. So can I ask you to go first?
Yeah, for sure. I just wanted to note that I'm in multiple watches of this episode. I started to notice that Spock sees himself in the when we see into his mind, he's always wearing white, and it's like kind of how we see ourselves in our in our mind's eye, right? And maybe that represents his innocence. Maybe that represents, he's the hero of his own journey. But when Burnham sees him, when she gets to go into the in her when we go into her mind at the end about the kind of like inciting moment or the reason why their pain is so interlocked, she sees him wearing black mostly, and or sees him also in the present day. So I just thought that was an interesting little kind of design moment, and also the way that we see ourselves, the way we see others, as like, well, I didn't do the wrong. I'm not the one who did wrong, and they both did wrong, right? They both need to kind of come to terms with that. And and they had to go all the way to this other planet and have these other beings help them actually talk to each other. Like, so dramatic, Vulcans.
Television therapy.
Right. Yes, and culturally raised Vulcans in Burnham's case, right? All right, Maya Mama, let's jump to you. Then we're gonna go to Hazel. Thoughts on how these characters are coming to terms with themselves?
Well, I was thinking of the question, when does perception become perspective? And I was thinking when perception becomes memory, because a lot of this is about like what I remember. So I saw something a certain way, and then it imprints on my mind, and then that uh then imprints on all of my activities and all of the behavior that I have after that effect. I think that we see a lot of that with Spock, and a ton of that uh with Burnham, but also Culber is really um he has separate memories of different lives, of things that aren't his current existence, and that's a lot to process through.
Most definitely. And Colbert says, "You kept all my stuff up. You kept all my pictures up." And there's really great shots throughout this episode, continuing to connect to the Alice in Wonderlandness. It feels like Alice in Wonderland is canon text for Star Trek Discovery, and it makes me have to read it again. Ugh. Not my favorite book, but I might go there for Disco. All right, Hazel, your final thought around this idea of characters coming to terms with themselves. You also had some really interesting insights about Vina.
Yes. Maya Mama, you just reminded me of my thought on memory. Like, perception and memory are both malleable, and memory specifically, like, we know now can be changed, and you can actively change it. So it's interesting how this episode hinges on memory being truth when it just simply isn't. But for the purposes of Spock's contribution to the plot, everything he remembers has to be fact. So it's interesting to just think like how fictional that is. And then in terms of Vina, I just had a very strong reaction when she revealed her true self to Burnham, and how that was the reason, or that was what the Telosians offered her, was that post accident, post crash, they offered her the ability to either retain her injury, her scars, and from what I saw on screen, it was really just like physical disfigurement of her face and not much else different, or to look the way that we see her, as this like gorgeously made up, perfectly coiffed, perfectly dressed model looking woman. So that just, to me, made me think about how ableist this world is, even though Discovery has been a very progressive show in terms of who we see on screen, the relationships we see, even some of the perspectives. Just that really struck me as like a moment where there was an opportunity to say something about accepting who we are where we are. And maybe this ties into that acknowledgement of pain conversation. So yeah, it was just really interesting to me that maybe the penalty shouldn't be death for going to this planet, because it's kind of like that Fantasy Island moment where either you're going to go there and realize something about yourself, or you're just going to get lost and stay on that planet forever.
Okay, making a connection to Fantasy Island, Hazel.
Nice.
All right. I appreciate that. And let me just say there is so much more to say. As Claudia likes to say on this show, discovery rewards a rewatch. So hopefully we've given you some nuggets. Those of you following along with us on the Outside In YouTube channel, those of you on our archive, or those of you on our podcast, we invite you to share your thoughts with us. The way that we like to end thematics is we like to jump into spoiler zone. And as you all know, I've been sitting on the thing since Maya brought it up. So what we're going to do is, if you are watching this show synchronously, like Maya Chinchilla is, we want to keep the spoilers from you so you can have your own authentic arc and journey with this show. We're about to go into the spoiler zone for 3 minutes. So if you're visually watching us, you're going to look out till the screen goes back to a big old green. But if you're listening, go ahead and set your timers, because we're going to go into the spoiler zone. Brandon, shall we go? Engage.
Incoming transmission.
Okay, we had 3 minutes. All right, here's the thing I was about to say is, Maya helped me realize, yes, I'm watching season 2 now because I am trying to track Culber's journey. Like, I was so, my first few rewatches were so much about Burnham that I realized, no, this is the time I want to watch and see how Culber builds himself back, because we need him to, but then B, it's like I can't wait to see what happens in season 4 when he gets to be lead medical and Burnham is captain. I also can't wait to see Burnham's ready room. That dawned on me today. I have more things to share, but I'm gonna share spoilers on space really quick. Maya Mama, any thoughts for spoilers on today?
So yeah, I agree with you as far as his journey, because of all the trauma that he goes through, he himself is uniquely capable of helping other members of the crew in season 3 manage their own significant trauma. Also, I think that and I remember in the Cage slash Menagerie, that the Telosians have some sort of like voyeurism pain kink thing going on, and I'm not trying to shame. I'm not shaming. I just wish that they had more access to consenting partners, because
And are there
it is creepy.
and are there only 3 Telosians ever? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hazel, do you have thoughts that you want to share? I mean, I know you've been.
So I found this out after looking up info on Talos that Pike ends up going there after he's injured. So again, this is just going back to the whole like ableist thing. Now I'm just like falling down this ableist hole where I'm like, I guess I don't really have a complete thought, but I'm just like, why can't the Telosians? Why do you have to go to the Telosians to be able to find satisfaction with who you are? I guess that's my like beef with this whole
I think that's fair.
Telosian
That's
arc.
fair. Well, they,
it makes
they
me-
essentially
go ahead.
wipe it out. Go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say they make it so that
You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, so physically you don't notice that you're in a chair. You don't notice that you have any disfigurements. Vina did also have a lot of physical issues because the Telosians had never seen a human before. So they sort of jigsaw puzzle pieced her together. And so I believe that she had some issues with that.
Can I also just say I'm so excited for Mama Burnham. I'm so excited for Mama Burnham. I'm so excited.
Oh yes,
for Mama
So much.
Oh my god,
So much.
that actress is amazing.
Burnham. Yes,
I
yes,
love her. I love her.
Yes, we're getting her next episode, right? Oh, spoilers on already.
Oh yes,
Love it.
yes, yes.
Transfer of data is complete.
Amazing. Welcome back. Thank you to Maya Mama and Hazel for joining us in the spoiler zone. Video friends, I'm going to wave at you so you can come back. Folks on the audio podcast, yes, press play. This is, we are out of spoiler zone now. I want to welcome Maya Chapina back. And I know during spoiler zone you didn't watch because you haven't seen beyond this episode, but you probably making a little doodle. So I want to invite you. Do you have a doodle to share with us?
I do.
Awesome.
It's real rough. It's real rough right now, but I was trying to put some color in it. It is
Ooh.
some flowers. It's the singing flowers. And I wrote smile, sing. But but I liked the little turquoise and I liked how they opened and closed when you touched them.
I love it.
Pew pew pew.
It's amazing.
Definitely. Love it. Thank you so much for that excellent doodle show. And thank you, everybody. Those are our final thoughts on thematic for Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 8, If Memory Serves.
And sorry, I was putting extra color. If you're intrigued by our approach to Star Trek, help us hold Trek space for women of color and our allies. And here's how you can do it. You can direct your dollars and support this ongoing work through patreon.com/TrekTable.
/,
Yes.
right?
Oh, patreon.com/TrekTable.
Amazing. Find us on Patreon or go to our website at trektable.com and click on the button to donate. All right. So we're at the final Trek Table question and we've been booking along, hanging out, and now we're going to go. Here we go. Here we go. We get to see so many Spocks in this episode. Because he's of his battles with the logic time flux of his mind. Who was your favorite Spock in this episode? Some examples might be the forceful black hole breaking Spock, the hands and knees Spock in medical white PJs with that awesome white marker on that black floor. Maybe that's the one I like. Winter Parka mind meld Spock, or maybe baby Spock, but I love you, sister. Or maybe you like smiley Spock on the Section 31 ship. Who was your favorite Spock in this episode?
Mira que regresa el maldito. Viene con las manos llenitas de piedra que no quiere arrojar.
All right, so we are back with Trek Table question number 3, and we're nearing the end of this show, so I'm going to ask the panel to keep your thoughts tight. Which was your favorite Spock in this episode? Forceful black hole breaking Spock, hands and knees Spock in the medical white PJs, Winter Parka mind meld Spock, baby Spock that says, but I love you, sister, or the smiley Spock on Section 31 ship, or maybe your own. Let's go to Hazel. You're our guest today. Who was your favorite Spock on this episode?
My favorite Spock was the Spock with the docks.
I love it. Which Spock is that? Oh, you mean the Spock with the docs
The
and the
medical
white
Spock.
medicals? Thank
yes,
you. Okay.
in the white
Yes.
cool uniform.
I love the poetry. I just wanted to make sure I got the answer right.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Love it. Thank you. Maya Mama, what about you? Who was your favorite Spock in this episode?
Definitely baby Spock. Do. But also,
Now that will be stuck in my head.
anytime Spock just spoke.
Mhm.
Anytime he spoke.
Second
anytime.
Second that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now
Sorry,
you see.
I'm thinking about baby Spock. Do can you do the Vulcan thing? Do I can't do it. I can't Spock. Do. Baby Spock. Do. I think we created a new thing. I think we created a new thing. All right, Maya Chinchilla, I'm coming to you. Who's your favorite Spock in this episode?
I like Spock even when he's not talking, and when he's on the ship and he's in his mind, up is down, and he can still be like, no, we need to go forward. He's got a moment of like, the rest you can do. I'm tired.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I definitely love so many of the Spocks in this episode. I think that my favorite, though, was Hands and Knees Spock. Something about him riding on the floor was interesting to me. So, friends in the chat, we're super interested in seeing what you're into. Some white PJ Spock is showing up in our chat. So yeah, and we're gonna keep wanting to know that. And that actually brings us to the end of our Trek Table questions for this episode, Season 2, Episode 8. And before I come to the very, very end of Trek Table questions, I want to say that in the chat for question number 2, the chat assembled voted for Culber. So Culber got the most votes for who people were rooting for in the fight, but there was some honorable mention with some votes for the name your own person. So reporting out all of that. Now that is all of our Trek Table questions for this episode, season 2, episode 8, if memory serves. All right, and we are back. We strive to hold space for Black, Indigenous, Brown women of color here on the Trek Table, and we want to amplify some resources and highlight the work of women of color content creators, community builders, and world shapers. Maya Mama, can I have you share our first signal boost for the day?
Absolutely. We uplift intimacy choreography in conversation, a podcast where hosts Ann James and Carly D. Weckstein talk candidly about the growing world of intimacy choreography and shifting performing arts spaces towards a culture of consent. Check out episode 202, where they chat with Diane Wyan, the godmother of intimacy choreography. They discuss her journey with diabetes and advocating for artists with disabilities, even invisible ones, in ableist spaces. Find them on Apple, Google, and Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Links are in the chats and in the notes.
I just want to point out that she's the godmother of the podcast.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you.
Sorry, I just
We'll
noticed
adjust
that.
All right.
Thank you, Diana Wyan, godmother of the podcast. I actually had that moment.
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, producer of that podcast. All right. So I'm gonna take signal boost number 2. Here we go. So we just wanna we've been talking a lot about justice and accountability, not only in Star Trek Discovery, but also thinking about it in our own lives. So the Trek Table just wants to amplify the self-accountability, a transformative justice mini journal. So we invite you to envision taking accountability as a generative, liberatory, and life-affirming practice. This mini journal is created by Daria at Accountability Mapping. Daria's work with accountability mapping synthesizes transformative justices principles with Qigong practices and somatic exploration. The body becomes a doorway on a journey of change, moving you towards alignment with what matters. Get the free mini journal and learn more at accountabilitymapping.com. We'll drop that into the chat and the episode notes. And finally, Maya, can I ask you to share our final signal boost of the day?
Yes, Black Femme Supremacy Film Fest is around the corner, and I'm so glad there is such a thing. The festival is a grassroots endeavor to connect Black femmes throughout the African diaspora through the medium of film. The festival will stream on Sisterhood Media from September 5th to the 11th. Check out the shorts block program by our friends at VC. Get your film passes and more at bfsfilmfest.com.
Yes, and if you have a woman of color content creator that you want us to amplify, let us know by sending us a DM at our Insta at Trek Table or at Trek Table 1 on Twitter. And those are our signal boosts for episode 25 of the Trek Table. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us for this episode 25. I'm so proud we made it episode 25 here on the Trek Table. As is the case every week, we share our final thoughts as a way to close out what we think about this particular episode. So I'm going to invite Maya Chapina, Maya Chinchilla to go first. Can I ask you to share your final thoughts on this episode, if memory serves?
Yes. I've been thinking a lot about Culber's journey. We've talked a lot about it, but also I recommend watching the Ready Room interview with him for season 2, because he talks about not only coming back from the network and where he went as an actor, to think about that, of being like kind of ripped apart and put back together, and how he was inspired by actually pre and post HIV/AIDS movements, and how people got access to medication and some who didn't, and kind of like a survivor's guilt and loss. And so I saw that a lot in his body language. It's kind of puffed out but defensive. His memory is intact, but he's like a character in like, I don't know, I was thinking like Buffy the Vampire Slayer or like any of these super kind of supernatural shows. When you bring back somebody from the dead, it's never the same. They're kind of stuck in that in between space, and you're forever changed. And I identify with that experience. I've been in a horrible accident, and also now uh, being one of many of us humans, who are experiencing this pandemic and multiple phases of this pandemic. I think we have a lot of grief and a lot of things to face and things that we don't want to face. And especially, Culber represents like a medical professional, all these first responders who have seen so much and are right now still with some surges seeing, so much horror. And I think that some of us have survivor's guilt being here. Some of us are not facing the truth. Some of us are doing all that we can to kind of process with each other and loving on each other as best as we possibly can. And that's what I want to leave you with.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Maya. Maya Mama, can I invite you to go next? What are your final thoughts on this episode?
Well, I love that the seriousness of this episode, the serious themes were tempered with some solid Disney Channel sibling comedy. The banter between Spock and Michael it was just all so good. Do you think that beard is working? It was like, and he was affected by it. Like he does this like thing where he's like checking on it, and
Yep.
and it just cracked me up. He needs to try again, brother. Be good. Uh-huh.
Okay. Bringing a little bit of Amanda in it. I'm gonna go third, so that our guests can close us out in final thoughts. Yeah,
I am.
Oh, no,
sorry.
wait, let me go
ahead,
first.
ahead.
Let me go
Yeah,
first.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I know you're super ready.
Took
Okay.
me a little bit to process that, what you just said.
Yes. As I like lick my lips and like get ready, I would just say that this episode, like these last couple episodes, I feel like because we're in the back part of season 2. I'm just super excited and hungry to get to the end of this season, but I'm afraid to get to the end of this season because I love this season so much. And we're here in this episode digging in, and I feel like we're finally getting to the meat of the protein of the season. We finally get to see Burnham and Spock interact as adults and not just in these flashback memories, and the and that Spock is not someone we're waiting for who doesn't ever show up. It's not a like waiting for Godot. We like actually get the moment. So I'm super grateful, and I guess all I want to say is, yeah, my final thought is like, I can't wait to come back next week and talk about this next episode. I can't wait to keep talking about this show. And yeah, I just ditto appreciate what I just heard Maya say in terms of first responders. That's really resonating with me. So yeah, my final thought is just, let's do some more and then really choreograph this baby Spock dance because we all need more joy. And that's how I will end. Hazel as our guest today, I want to say thank you and just invite you. What is your final thought on Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 8?
I'm having so many deep thoughts after this conversation. Thank you all for really delving into this episode. Claudia mentioned the thing about Vina being in mad pain and Pike being really jacked up. I something that's living with me and resonating with me now is healing, and how Star Trek, because it's a world where advanced technology is the norm and supposedly advanced ideals are the norm, how this show treats pain and suffering. That's something I'm kind of just mulling over.
Amazing. Thank you so much. All right. And those are our final thoughts on this episode's 25 of the Trek Table on Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 8, If Memory Serves. And we definitely hope that you all will join us next week as we talk about Episode 9, Project Daedalus.
Thank you all for joining us at the Trek Table. Get first look at the Trek Table questions, inside scoops, and more when you sign up for our mailing list at trektable.com.
Yes, and also you can find our Trek Table podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, and don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel so that you can get more Trek Table in your algorithms.
Like and subscribe to us on Instagram or Facebook at Trek Table and on Twitter at Trek Table 1. Join our convos there and please comment using the hashtags hashtag Trek Table, hashtag BIWOC Trek, and hashtag Star Trek Discovery.
Yes, and finally, I'd love to say thank you to this Trek Table assembled for episode 25 of the Trek Table. Thank you so much for being here, holding down this ritual. Thank you, Maya Chinchilla, Maya Mills-Lowe, and our guest, Hazel Lozano. Thank you all for sharing your insights and thoughts with us today. Big love and shouts out to our friends in the chat. So great to hear you and see your feedback. Thank you so much. We're so grateful for all of you. As we start to close out this ritual even more, I just want to take us back to the top of this episode. We're holding Trek space for survivors of trauma who don't want to be gaslit. We're holding Trek space for educators and students and people who are trying to keep each other safe. We're holding Trek space for seeing the grays but trusting yourself, and for all the degrees of nerddom. The Trek Table executive producers, myself, Alison Delacruz, and Luzviminda Jadiwala would like to thank our entire Trek Table production team. Thank you to production coordinator Brandon Chang, artist coordinator Terry Hashimoto, social media manager Isil Borlasa, stage manager Ariana Michelle, and special thanks to our shadow staffer for the day, Rachel Wasserman.
Deep gratitude and thanks to Outside in Theater. And extra thanks to Arlo, Alex, Danny, and Tamlin.
Yes, and thank you to Dr. Deborah Carter, Doc Zulu, and Nancy Yap, and our partners at Visual Communications, Francis and Abe.
Trek Table is a service mark of Daylaw Projects, LLC.
Yeah, so we want to say thank you to all of you for coming to this Trek Table. We want to close out this ritual for today, so let's go ahead, everybody here gathered in the video and in the chat, take that breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Yes, we hope that you will join us next Sunday, August 29th, as we dive deep into Season 2, Episode 9 of Star Trek Discovery, Project Daedalus. We'll be back with Claudia Alec, Marie Ren-Velez, Maya Chinchilla, and myself, and maybe more. We hope we'll see you. Thanks again, Hazel Lozano. Everybody, have a great week.
Thank you.
See you later.